committee will now come to order. We'll take the items in order that they appear on the agenda. With item number 2, we will take up that item at the appropriate time during the agenda. And at this time, we'll start with item number 1.
Item number 1, City Attorney Report relative to request to destroy certain obsolete records from the City Administrative Officer Risk Management Division for the period April 8, 1976 through May 19, 1983.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Eileen Shapiro. I'm with the Records Management Division, City Clerk's Office. And I was a former employee of the City Attorney's Office Insurance and Bond Section. I was the one that filled out the transfer list to transfer these inactive logbooks to the Records Management Division, City Clerk.
Okay. So as far as your understanding is, we followed all the proper procedures and notifications?
Oh, yes, we followed the proper procedure.
Okay. All right. Is anybody here to speak on item number 1? Item number 1, I do not see any public comment cards. Seeing and hearing no public comment on item number 1. Public comment on item number 1 is now closed. With that, item number 1 will be a recommendation of the chair to approve. Okay, thank you. We now move to item number 3.
Item number 3, Department of General Services Report relative to the city's fuel tank policy review, city's underground fuel tank policies, and related matters.
He's in the building.
Good afternoon. I'm Angela Sherrick with the Department of General Services. GSD has come before this committee previously in November of 2007. At that time, the committee heard the report and had questions specific to how equipment to comply with ordinances is approved. The City Attorney's Office has researched this question and has come back with a response.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Casella, Deputy City Attorney. I had previously forwarded to your office an email explaining my conversations with the Legislative Council in Sacramento. Apparently your questions were about legislation or regulations that result in perhaps one company or two companies in a favored position in the market. And they expressed to me that while normally they would recommend against any legislation that was so specific as to benefit one company with a particular product or technology in place, but that generally technology forcing or standard setting legislation wouldn't be prohibited.
Okay. All right. Now this report, it covers a tremendous amount of not only facilities, but individual fuel sites, et cetera. What is the nature of going forward, how we feel about us being able to have all the sites in order and to be complying with the EPA, complying with state law, et cetera?
The Department of General Services is responsible for the maintenance of the fuel sites, and the Department is in compliance. As we stand right now, the report specifically asks for some recommendations to be approved to go forward.
Okay.
One of the first recommendation is to adopt the installation criteria for the city's policy for the installation of new fuel sites. One of the concerns that the department has right now is that a department can go ahead and install a fuel site without having a minimum amount of fuel being used at that site. And when you look at the spreadsheets that we've attached to the report, you'll see that because some of the fuel sites use such a small amount of fuel that we pay quite a bit for the fuel used at those sites. So the first recommendation is that we actually establish a policy that sets a criteria for the amount of fuel that's used. We've also, in that same policy, discussed with the Department of, with the Bureau of Engineering and also Contract Administration and also the fire department to get buy-in to how we establish the sites and how we also do inspections and acceptance of the sites. So that has to do with the first recommendation. The next recommendation is to establish an emergency fuel network. Right now, the city doesn't have a network that we use for emergencies. Right now, if there's an emergency and we have a citywide power outage, we don't actually have site-specific that city employees can go to fuel. So one of the recommendations was to establish a network of 13 sites that city employees would know that they could go to at any time that have both diesel and unleaded fuel and have generator power. The next recommendation was for the CAO to identify funding to install generators and security gates, and that's actually a budget issue, and that's something that we've already discussed with the CAO's office and put together a budget package for. The next recommendation is also a budget issue, and it's for the tank removals. The fire department agreed to remove about 8 tanks at their sites to reduce the amount of costs for those sites. And we put in a budget package for those removals. The fifth recommendation is for all of the departments to work with General Services to give a review of the amount of fuel that's used at their sites every year so that we can determine if there are trends in up and down usage of fuel so that we can try to reduce the amount of fuel that's used at all the fuel sites. The next recommendation is to instruct the Department of Transportation to work with MTA. And that recommendation is basically for the use of compressed natural gas. While the city has a compressed natural gas, we have several stations. None of them are large enough to service the dash buses that DOT has. So one of the discussions that we had within the committee was that perhaps DOT would start a conversation with MTA that also has buses, and perhaps they could actually share sites. And then the last recommendation was to instruct GSD to become the chairperson of a study to look at a liquefaction plant. And that recommendation was based on the fact that we've had several interruptions of fuel. And the city is in the process of converting our whole refuse fleet into using liquefied natural gas. So if we have an interruption, we don't have any place else to get fuel. Right now, our fuel comes from Arizona. We're in the process of going out to bid, and if the new bidder could possibly be, their plant could be in Texas. So, if they break down on the way here, or if, they don't have enough drivers, anything could impact the city's ability to pick up trash. And that's a huge concern for us. So in order to ensure that the city has a stable supply, we'd like to do a feasibility study so that we can determine whether or not there's an area within the city of Los Angeles where we can put a liquefaction plant.
When it comes to a liquefaction plant, just the fact that you're talking about fuel, you're talking about something like liquefaction that might scare constituents. Are we looking to put that inside of the LA city or inside of the LA basin? What kind of footprint are our engineers telling us we need, and what kind of facility and what kind of community could we put one of these in?
Mm-hmm. Well, what we're looking at right now, again, is looking at doing a feasibility study. There are some areas of the city that we've looked at that are probably more hospitable to liquefaction, a plant, than others. So I think we're looking about an acre.
Actually, several acres. So we're going to be Augustin with General Services. We're looking in the range from 4 to 10 acres of land for the liquefaction plant.
So as part of the feasibility study, we would do community outreach, and actually, once we identify areas, we would do community outreach and get input from the community, and also discuss with them the concerns that they might have. In addition, GSD has done a little bit of groundwork, and we have SoCal Gas Company actually here today who is willing to partner with us on a feasibility study for this. Would you like to hear from them?
Partner on a feasibility study so that we both can benefit for understanding the study, or to partner in an actual facility?
To partner in an actual facility.
And the gas company, they're actually involved in the raw product?
Yes.
Bill Zobel, Southern California Gas Company.
Say your name again?
Bill Zobel.
Okay.
You haven't seen that name anywhere, I hope.
So, do you have one of these in liquefaction plants in the basin?
We don't. We've had small-scale liquefaction facilities in the basin previously that we've operated, but none currently operating.
Okay.
This would be a large-scale, big-time facility.
When you say large scale, what's the volume, or what's the measurement of the scale of this?
A lot depends on what the city needs in terms of supply, but it could be anywhere between 70 and 100,000 gallons per day, even bigger if that's what's required.
70 to 100,000 gallon what?
70 to 100,000 gallons per day.
Oh, okay, per day.
And I think the feasibility study will tease out more how large the facility should be to meet the needs for the city.
Okay. And when you said a smaller scale, what were the smaller scale facilities that your company was?
10,000 gallons a day or smaller, just to test out various technologies. It was part of our demonstration activities.
Okay, demonstration projects. Okay.
Excuse me.
Why would you want to partner with the city of LA?
Well, it seems like a good fit. I mean, we're in the gas supply business, fuel supply business. It's a natural fit for us to help the city provide that partnership. We have the expertise that we can bring to the table to help you understand the marketplace, what the demands are, what the needs are, what the various technologies are that's in the field, and help pull a nice package together for you.
So I'm assuming a city maybe we're a city of a population of about 4 million people with a lot of in-house facilities, such as trash trucks, things of that nature. But even if a city had its own infrastructure like that, they're like a city of 100,000 people or what have you, which is a small fraction of ours. It's not conceivable that they would need a facility of this size, correct?
Just explain the last part of the question again. I'm sorry. I
If
lost you
it
there.
were a smaller city,
Okay.
here you have the city of LA, 4 million people,
Right.
big entity.
Yep.
A lot of infrastructure, a lot of need for a 70 to 100,000 gallon per day facility, right?
Right.
On a smaller city, say in the LA basin, 100,000 people or what have you, would they have a need conceivably for something as big as 70 to 100,000 gallons a day?
Potentially.
I mean, obviously, if they're willing to do that for their own infrastructure in case of emergency, go ahead
Right.
and use it as a facility for other people to tap into.
Right.
But as far as a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, they wouldn't necessarily need that kind of infrastructure.
Not unless they had their own refuse department that used a large load, or a transit agency, or a large fleet of some sort of trucks, heavy-duty trucks that required large volumes, then they probably wouldn't have a need for that. They would need to contract with others to try and spread that supply out.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to point out the fact that the city of Los Angeles makes a great partner with private industry all the time. Especially when it comes to infrastructure issues, the consumption of this product when it comes to the city of LA is one of the biggest in California, I would imagine.
They are. That's an excellent point. Excellent partner.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're
Thank you very much. Anything else? How long have you been working on this?
How long have we been working on the report?
Yeah,
Gosh, probably about a year.
about a year. Well, it's a lot of work. How many people in the room have been working on this report? Raise your hand.
Please, all the departments that work in the report, raise your hand.
I want to.
Departments.
I know we have Councilmember Bernard Parks walking in the room, which always is reason for an applause, but I just wanted to personally applaud you for all the hard work and the effort that you put into this report. It's very comprehensive. There's a lot of moving parts. And the last component, which is the recommendation number 8, is extremely complicated because it's prospective, and we siting of such a facility sometimes scares the public and makes it very difficult for a lot of the practical requirements to come into play and into reality when the community can become very concerned. Sometimes even the most accurate responses still doesn't allay the concerns of the community. So it's going to be a bit difficult to cite a facility like that. But from what I know of these facilities, they can be safe and they can be something that is tremendous, gives a tremendous benefit to the community with very little detriment. So hopefully it'll come through just fine. So with that, do we have any public comment on item number 3? Public comment on item number 3. I don't have any public comment cards on this item. Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 3 is now closed. With that, make a motion to adopt GSD's recommendations 1 through 7. And when it comes to recommendation number 8, we'll instruct the GSD and DWP to report back on the feasibility of siting a liquefaction plant in the city prior to any negotiations, including the potential for a DWP and GSD partnership as part of this effort. The report should also include the advantages, risks, and costs associated with the development and implementation of a liquefaction plant. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, with that, that's been moved and approved. Thank you very much. We'll now move back to item number 2. Item number 2, please.
Item number 2, city attorney and city clerk to report in response to motion, Weezar Perry Garcetti, relative to authorizing the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools to use the city seal on school uniforms for 5 years, 2008, 2013. This item is scheduled for council consideration on June 18th, 2008.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again. It's been a while. So what has been done since the last time we had this item in committee?
I'm so sorry.
What's been done since the last time we had this item in committee?
Well, as instructed by your council member last week, our office prepared a draft license trademark agreement to facilitate deliberation by the committee and possibly full council. And the draft license agreement, if adopted by the city council, would authorize the partnership for Los Angeles schools to use the city seal on uniforms at certain partnership schools, which has been contractually obligated and delegated to the partnership to run. And so that piece of document, in the draft attached with the the item, should enable the authorization under LA Muni Code 63.108.
Okay.
However, the city council do have to make a finding that such use would serve a public purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, these are our constituents, these students, and the schools that have been identified for this partnership for LA schools, they are schools all geographically within the city of Los Angeles. We know that LA Unified School District goes beyond the city boundaries, but these schools are all within the city of Los Angeles.
There's a school that sits actually right at the edge in the county that serves the majority of students live in the city.
Okay.
That's Ritter Elementary.
All right. So nobody ever claimed that these schools exclusively serve LA City constituents, but by and large,
Correct.
the vast majority are LA City constituents. With that, has the partnership had an opportunity to see the document that you're going to need to agree to if we go forward?
Yes.
Okay. And you're in
Yes,
agreement with it?
we're in agreement with the document.
Okay. Well, when it comes to the finding, definitely these schools are providing services to our youth. Case has been made by the partnership that this is something that will assist with the morale and also the enthusiasm of these students being part of these schools moving forward. In addition to that, we made it clear, and it was correspondence between the partnership and our city attorney's office and to the council, this committee, that these, the seal use is only and exclusively for the purposes of the school uniforms. And as was mentioned in the last meeting, this is not going to be used for a logo of the school. This is not going to be a marquee on the entrance of a school. This is not going to be used as a school mascot, et cetera, et cetera. It's strictly for the purposes of the uniforms that the children will be wearing, correct?
Correct.
And it will not be adopted on the letterhead of the school, letterhead and things of that nature, strictly
For
purposes
uniform use.
of uniform use. And one of the urgencies in this case was the fact that some of the schools are starting their new school year July 1st, is it?
Yes.
July 1st, and these uniforms need to be made and the logos put on them so that they can go ahead and have their uniforms so they can start the school year correctly with their proper uniforms. And the partnership has stated for the record that they have identified a potential manufacturer for these uniforms should the agreement allow them to process them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions before I call public comment?
No, I just had a couple of concerns in that, and I'm going to show my age here in a minute, but I think what has been historically the position of the city, and particularly police department where I came out of, is that there were certain things that were sacred, and they were the uniforms, badges, cars, and buildings, and we normally protected those because it's not that this is not a good program, it's who do you say no to in the future. And once you allow that seal to go out, it's very, very difficult to withdraw it or tell somebody in the community that has an equally as good argument to say, well, why them and not us? And I think that, in fact, when you go back and begin to think about things like the LA Marathon, they don't use the city seal. We can rarely see the city seal other than in buildings and things that relate specifically to the city of LA. And I just think it stretches us to where this may be an appropriate area, but it stretches us to where you can't say no in the future. Pretty soon, the seal becomes not a city seal, it becomes a seal in which people have a tendency to use. And again, once you give it out, you have little control. You may agree that it should be on uniforms, but as people begin to develop camaraderie amongst their school, next thing you know, it's on T-shirts. The next thing you know, it's on coffee mugs. The next thing you know, it's on fundraisers. It just becomes something that's uncontrollable. And we've seen over time where the city and the police department did not protect this copyright. And we've had little success in keeping it off TV and a variety of other things. I think the city attorney has done a great deal of effort to bring that back into focus. But again, I just don't know if it serves us in the sense of allowing that seal to be used for anything other than what its intended purpose is. And it was intended for city business, city service, city facilities, city cars, and when appropriate, badges and things of that nature for city employees. And so I think it takes us down a path that, again, not that this is not a good cause. I just don't know how you say no to the next 47 that come in and say, what about me? Can we put it on our block clubs? Can we put it on our neighborhood councils? Can we put it on almost anything people come up with? And so I have a big concern as to diluting the issue of what these symbols mean. And that's my big concern, is that it's when you go back and look by the municipal code, is very explicit for city business, city use, and I think we're going beyond that.
Well, I can just put something on I can put something on the record. Between the last IGTS meeting and today, I've done some research and also ascertaining some of the relationships. And one thing I think I'm just going to put on the record whatever it means. The partnership has a contract with the LAUSD that by contract they are delegated with the authority to run the so-called partnership schools. So in essence, if the council do want to authorize the use of the city seal on the uniforms of the several schools, it's almost like licensing or giving the right to a school district to use the city seal, which is different from from a IP council standpoint, privately worry about any nonprofit marching in who might be doing some good to the community or neighborhood want to use the city seal. And I think that also might be part of the Councilman Park's concern. But so the fact that the partnership has a contract with LAUSD to run the school, those certain schools, is it correct? And I ascertained, I got a copy of the contract last time, and maybe Mr. Marshall Tux can speak to whether the contract has been signed, and I was told that it has or was being signed.
Yes, the contract's been signed by the board president of the school district and the partnership.
So the partnership is official?
Yes.
It was voted on by the board,
And
the
it's
school
been
district
signed.
board, but the contract has been signed?
Yes.
Okay.
And the way that and also to address, yes, that's totally correct. The LAMC 63.10A is very restrictive. And being an IP council for the city, who has a duty to be really guarding the trademarks, which a city seal is from my legal standpoint. In this draft agreement, we talked about the quality control in paragraph 5, as to how they can use the city seal, who can use it, only for uniforms, nothing else, as what the councilman earlier talked about, the chairperson talked about. And also there's vendor provision paragraph number 6, which at the time of drafting, we did not limit to all provisions, but we just basically say there's a certain thing the vendor cannot do. In other words, the manufacturer of the uniforms may not do overrun. They may not use sweatshop or it has to be a sweat-free environment. And also that will be in keeping with some of the city policy, which I think the city clerk can address, that we can strengthen also. But then the way the provision number 6 was drafted is not all-inclusive. And we can definitely add more that would address the control of the city seal, possibly used or misused by other people.
Let me just say, and I understand what you're saying, but if we go back into the moment that LAPD gave its badge as a cloth badge and allowed uniform companies to put it on uniform garments, that badge now is in anybody's home that can afford to buy it. And the minute you put that seal out, and they can make all the promises they want, the fact is that seal will be whoever can purchase it. That's just the way it works.
Right. I understand that. That is the contractual. That's the risk by doing it. I mean, the lawyers can do as much as we can to minimize and lower the risk, and there could be possible infringement out there too. And but by the same token, with this electronic age, a lot of images out there are out there, and so if people want to infringe, they can anyways without coming to the city. But I'm very concerned about electronic images. That's why I oftentimes give advice to the clients in departments that when it's find your electronic images, do not pass it out, because that can generate more infringement.
But I think what my concern is that there's all kind of things people can do electronically and certainly over computers and whatever, but in our giving the specs in this out into a uniform environment, we're aiding and abetting whatever somebody chooses to do with it. We've seen it over and over again, and no matter how much we get promised, if it gets into the uniform store hands, it could be purchased by anyone that chooses or has the money, and that's what's happened over and over and over again. So there is no sanctity to that once it's on the marketplace.
Holly Walcott with the City Clerk's Office. Currently, the license that we have in place is with the LA City Employees Club, and they have license to sell the logo on such things as T-shirts, mugs, that type of thing to city employees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the logo appears on hats and
Hats,
certain
right.
other garments through that license. Now, when it comes to if there is an abuse by a school site or a group of kids or what have you, the city can determine whether or not they're going to sever this agreement?
Yes, there are ample provisions in here that we can terminate immediately for violation of the scope of the license, for example, controlling the partnerships, control the vendor in overrun of matters, uniforms, or selling it to unauthorized personnel and so forth. Yes, they are in paragraph under the termination, and I can elaborate more if you
So
want.
the partnership understands that even though you have a vendor, this particular vendor that you look to use actually has stores, don't they?
I believe they
saw one
do.
in
Yeah,
CA.
okay, yeah, I believe they do, but...
They have retail outlets.
Yeah,
My point is that-
in this relation, there would be no retail sales of the products. It would just
Exactly.
be
So
wholesale
you
to
would-
partnership, and we
you
would sell this to...
You would be responsible to make sure that nobody tries to utilize these or sell the uniforms. Even if they try to sell them to the kids who go to these schools, you will remain the outlet for these garments, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's a lot of responsibility, as Councilman Parks has just pointed out, and as we discussed at length in the last committee meeting covering this matter, that the City of Los Angeles is extremely protective of its seal, and it's very, very, very seldom do they allow it to be utilized in any other fashion other than official city use. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I'm Angela Bass with the partnership. I really want to express the need for the partnership to partake in a spirit of pride with the city. The children that we're serving within the partnership tend to be 90% at the end, the lowest end of our income, and we really are trying to generate this community of Los Angeles and the spirit and the pride and the scholarly environment that we want our children to live in. And if we're going to live in Los Angeles, this will signify to them that we are part of the city, that it is a very important and that it is very precious, as Councilman Parks has said, it is sacred, it is very important, and that they are a part of the city and that it's important. So we're really trying to create a culture that says who we are and that we represent the city of Los Angeles as well in a fine way, and that we're going to be learners and carry ourselves in a way that reflects that.
All right. We have a public comment card on this item. Joyce Dillard. Thank you.
I could not attend the last committee meeting. I submitted email comments, which you did not receive, apparently, and they're not outside, nor are they posted, but the comments from the partnership are. And in that email, I listed how it is not part of the charter for the mayor to do this. The judgments or the court opinions, both superior and appellate, that don't allow a mayor to do this. Partnership or not, they're state of California public schools, overseen by LAUSD. I believe this partnership may be illegal, but that will be decided in court. You're kind of defiant and disrespectful to the taxpayers and the voters of California and the city of LA, because it's a vote that requires a change, whether it be in the state constitution or in the city charter. And that hasn't been done last time, and it's not being done this time. There appears to be budget money from the city of LA for this partnership in salaries and other areas. Thank you, Daily News, for listing the salaries. So you have put city resources, yet you continue to up the fees for the taxpayers, and you consider measures of like cell phone tax and things because you're always crying poor, yet city resources are being used. So I think you are at great risk, and if you agree to this as a council, then you agree to be defiant to the courts. Again, I had an email with this listed on all the charters and issues like that. It looks like I'll have to get it ready again for tomorrow's council. So you can see this is just not right. And even though all kinds of these tricks are being played, it's still going to be challenged. I've said this at LAUSD, I'll say it again. These are LAUSD schools, part of the state public school system. There's no code for a non-charter school. They're stretching the limits, and they want to be challenged. Again, it will be a second challenge. It was challenged once under AB 1381. It'll be challenged again. So I would recommend that you deny this. Again, these are not city schools, and if you vote for this as a council, you're showing your endorsement and your liability.
Thank you, Ms. Dillard. Okay, is there anybody else here for public comment on item number 2? Public comment on item number 2 remains open. Seeing and hearing no more public comment on item number 2. Item number 2, public comment is now closed. With that, okay. There's a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
No, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay. All right. So this item moves out of this committee on a 1-to-1 vote. 1 yes, 1 no. And it will go to the city council tomorrow.
Yes, it will.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4.
Item number 4, General Services Department report relative to a proposed lease with the state of California for office space at the South District Long Beach Courthouse located at 415 West Ocean Boulevard, Suites 206D and 308 in Long Beach, California, for the Office of the City Attorney and Los Angeles Police Department.
Reginald John Sawyer, Department of General Services. Before you, you see a lease with the for the City Attorney and Los Angeles Police Department personnel to administer court cases in the Long Beach Courthouse. This item was previously approved. However, the state of California has taken some time to actually take jurisdiction over all the courts. They now have recently taken jurisdiction. This lease is before you to consummate that action. It's $2 a square foot. It's $13,560 a year for the lease.
Okay. So the lease is for the rent of the space and also the parking spaces, correct?
10 parking spaces, yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay. No more questions from the committee. Is there anybody here to make public comment on item number 4? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 4 is now closed. With that, move to approve the item. The item is approved. Now move to item number 5.
Item number 5, GSD report relative to a proposed lease with Sumpra Energy Corporation for office space at 2424 East Olympic Boulevard to house the Critical Incident Planning and Training Alliance Joint Task Force headquarters.
The Emergency Management Department is the lead on the Joint Task Force Alliance, which does coordination of disaster and emergency preparedness plans in this area. Sumpra Energy has offered space at no cost to the City of Los Angeles to house these personnel. It's for 10 years, no cost. Utilities are also included, and it's enough space for up to about 40 personnel. So we ask for approval.
So 4,583 square feet of space. Is it no cost or $1 per year?
$1 per year.
Okay. $1 per year is just a legal term, right? That's
correct.
Considered consideration. Okay. All right. With that, any more questions from the committee? No. Seeing no questions from the committee, we now go to public comment on item number 5. Is anybody here to make public comment on item number 5? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 5 is now closed. With that, move to adopt the item. The item is adopted. Move now to item number 6.
Item number 6, GSD report relative to a proposed lease agreement with GSL Pharmacy, Inc., DBA Colfax Pharmacy, to operate a retail pharmacy in Space E in the Browdy Retail Mall, 6262 Van Nuys Boulevard, Van Nuys.
This is the final retail lease in the Browdy Center. It is for GSL Pharmacy. Our RFP went out. They were the successful bidder. They will be paying $3 per square foot and or 4% of gross receipts. We estimate that the city will earn $41,490 per year. And as I said before, this will be our last vacant space in the Browdy building.
Okay. How many square feet is this space? 1,165 usable?
Yes.
Okay. Do they get any parking spaces with that? Anybody know?
They have 2 parking spaces, and they're not on site, and they have to pay for them.
Okay. I'm sorry, they're not on site?
Yeah.
At the parking lot a block away?
It's another parking lot that's
Yeah, this is my district. I have my office right here, too. Yeah, we have a city parking lot, actually a 2-level parking lot. It's about a block away. So they get 2 spaces in that lot. Well, we drive a hard bargain. If I were leasing out this place, I'd want a couple parking spots downstairs, but that's the way it goes. They're okay with that? Fine with me. Any other questions? Okay, we're on item number 6. Anybody here to make public comment on item number 6? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 6 is now closed. With that, there's a motion to approve the item, and the item is adopted. We now move to the last item on the agenda, which is item number 7.
Item number 7, motion, Weiss Lavange, relative to naming the new radio tower located at 700 East Temple Street, Fire Assistant Chief Wilford W. Beeson Tower.
Good afternoon. David Yamahata, Chief of Staff, Fire Department. As a result of a bond measure, we're near completion of a new facility over on Temple. This is a combination fire station, LA Fire Department Dispatch Center, and a EOC center. In conjunction with that, there has been a radio communications tower erected. It's approximately 180 feet in close proximity to the facility. On the fire department, we have a member, Wilford Bisson, that is near retirement. He'll actually be retiring next month with 40 years of service to the fire department. During his career, this member has spent approximately a third of his career working at the Emergency Dispatch Center as well as the radio communications. This individual was also instrumental in developing our ham operator volunteer program in the city. We see this as a perfect opportunity to dedicate this tower and name the new tower after Wilford Bisson to kind of reward him for his dedication to the fire department and his work with the our emergency dispatch center as well as the radio communication center.
Okay. Any questions?
I may have missed it. Is he still alive?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, no, but he's retired.
He's retiring. He's retiring after 40 years of service.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's retiring in the next few months?
Next month, actually, next month, July 28th will be his last day.
Oh, really?
So we're hoping to have this approved prior to his retirement. We're constructing a plaque that will be placed on the radio tower. We're hoping that if we get approval, that we can actually bring him to a full council and he can be there when it does get approved. So.
All right. Okay. More questions? No. Seeing no more questions from the committee, we now move to public comment on item number 7. Public comment on item number 7 is now open. Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 7 is now closed. There's a motion to move the item, to approve the item. The item is approved. With that, we now move to general public comment to this committee. Is there anybody here to make general public comment to this committee? General public comment is open to this committee. Seeing and hearing none, general public comment is now closed. With that, this committee is now adjourned.